And remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Tonight's invocation is being offered by Philip Breen from St. Anne Catholic Church. He is the guest of Council Member Edith Langster.
Let us pray. Protect, O saving God, the city in which we live and toil, and all those who live in it. Inspire, Lord, with constant dedication those who work for the welfare of this city. Forgive, Lord, those who do us wrong in their evil intents. Keep us safe from their negative tendencies. Protect us in our homes and streets from violence of every sort. Lord, inspire us to find solutions to protect our environment and to improve our human relations. Show compassion for the poor, the homeless, the neglected, and for the forsaken children. Receive our thanks that our city was spared great loss of life in our recent floods, and that so many of our citizens and our leaders responded with great compassion, caring, and leadership. Bless this council, its members, and their families with health and much happiness. Let them know of the gratitude of all our citizens for their service and dedication. Take care, O saving God, of this seemingly faceless crowd, and grant order and peace to our city. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the
Flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Thank you so much.
You may be seated. Without objection, we'll suspend the calling of the roll and record the names of the members present throughout the meeting. Is there a motion for the adoption of the minutes? We have a motion and a second. Without objection, the minutes will stand approved. Madam Clerk, are there any messages from the mayor?
No, ma'am, there are not.
Thank you. I would like to take just a moment to say that Councilman Duvall and Councilman Hodge are still at home recovering from surgery, and we look forward to their return. Mr. Cooper, did you have an announcement to make?
Yes, I would like to introduce Mr. Lee Holmes to you, who is the Vanderbilt Law student that is working with us for the next 5 weeks. So, Mr. Holmes, if you have any specific legal questions you would like researched, feel free to email me and I will be happy to pass them on.
We're now at confirmations and elections. Councilmember Page.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. The Rules and Confirmation Committee considered 10 appointments to various boards and commissions. The committee considered the reappointment of Ms. Jean Harrison, Ms. Connie Johnson, and the appointment of Mr. Traben Stoner to the Board of Equalization. We recommended 4 in favor, 0 against. I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Councilmember Page.
Next, the Rules and Confirmation Committee considered the reappointment of Dr. Ruth Stewart to the Board of Health. We recommend 4 in favor, 0 against. I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes.
Next, we considered the reappointment of Mr. Ben Mosley. We recommend 4 in favor, 0 against. I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Councilmember Page.
We considered the appointments of Mr. Mark Baugh and Ms. Deborah Palmer-George. We recommend approval, 5 in favor, 0 against. Mr. King Hollins and Mr. Frank Stevenson are deferred.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Councilmember Page.
Mr. Chris Wiebe is deferred.
Thank you. When I call your name, please stand and remain standing. Jean Harrison, Connie Johnson, Trasbin Stoner, Ruth Stewart, Ben Mosley, Mark Ball, Deborah Palmer George. On behalf of the Metro Council, I want to thank you for your willingness to serve and to give of your time and talents to the city. Thank you very much. Councilman Dominy.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Allow me a point of personal privilege. We have an announcement on behalf of Councilman Jim Hodge from District 30 and one of his residents that are Scout Masters. Boy Scout Troop number 77. We have 3 Scouts here that are earning their Citizenship and Community Merit Badge. They're here visiting with us. They meet downtown at the Youth Encouragement Services Center. We have Jeremy Ferruzzi, Hakeem McCrae, Frank Benitez here, and Scoutmaster Jerry Swiger. We welcome them and thank you for your study in our country and for your service as Boy Scout.
We are now at bills on public hearing. The first one is BL 2010-658, makes provisions of an urban design overlay district known as the Pinhook UDO to 88.39 acres of property zoned RM9 located at 3534 and 3562 Pinhook Road unnumbered, and at Hamilton Church Road unnumbered east of Murfreesboro Pike. Councilman Dominy.
On behalf of the Planning Commission and Councilman Duvall, we ask that we defer this indefinitely.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor of indefinite deferral, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Next is BL 2010-665, makes provisions to 20.36 acres of an urban design overlay district known as the Edison Park UDO to 20.36 acres of property zoned RS10 located along Painter Drive, Schoolhouse Court, Jenny Ruth Point, Rebecca Trina Way, and Cornflower Trail east of Mountain View Road. Councilman Dominy.
Again, on behalf of Councilman Duvall, who's recovering well, the ask for indefinite deferral.
Second. Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Indefinite deferral passes. BL 2010-667 makes provisions of an urban design overlay district known as the Hamilton-Hobson UDO to 45.18 acres of property, Zone CS, MUL, RS10, and AR2A, located on Hamilton Church Road, and Hobson Pike, at the intersection of Hamilton Church Road and Hobson Pike. Councilman Dominy.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I move indefinite deferral.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Indefinite deferral passes. Next is BL 2010-671, changes 4.29 acres from R20 to SC zoning for property located at 7552 Sawyer Brown Road. Councilman Crafton.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee report.
There's no committee report.
Oh, okay, well, I'll just open the public hearing then.
Thank you. Could I see a show of hands of those in favor? Thank you. A show of hands of those in opposition. Seeing no one in opposition, does anyone in favor wish to speak? I declare the public hearing closed. Councilman Crafton.
Move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Without objection, we're going to take BL 2010-672 and BL 2010-673 together. 672 cancels 3.37 acres of a commercial plan unit development district zone R40 located at 7734 Highway South 70 South. 673 changes 3.37 acres from R40 to CL zoning for property located within a planned unit development overlay at 7734 Highway 70 South. Councilman Crafton.
Request to open a public hearing.
I would need to see the slides first, and then we will.
These are Council Bills 2010-672 and 2010-673. This is a request to cancel a PUD on property located at 7734 Highway 70 South. The property is outlined in red, and a request to rezone the property from R40 to SP to allow certain uses of the CL zoning district. The Planning Commission recommended disapproval of both requests. The current zoning on this property is a commercial PUD that was approved for a nursery and garden center. The base zoning is R40, which requires a minimum 40,000 square foot lot for a single or two-family dwelling. The SP would permit the uses of the CL zoning district with certain restrictions. This property is also within the floodplain overlay district, and the rezoning does not change the overlay district. During the recent storm events, this property was flooded, as well as much of the surrounding area. The current policies on the property are office transition and natural conservation. While the bulk of the property is in the office transition policy, it is almost entirely in the floodplain overlay district. The office transition policy is intended for small offices and was applied to serve as a buffer, a transition between the residential development to the north and the commercial uses to the south. The predominant land use in this area is low-rise, low-intensity office. The natural conservation policies on part of the floodplain. Low-intensity development may be appropriate in these areas. The PUD was approved to allow a nursery and garden center. While these are uses not supported by office transition policies, they are more appropriate uses for property within the floodplain overlay district than the residential uses permitted in the base zoning, as well as the uses that would be permitted in the requested SP district. The proposed SP plan calls for two buildings, a one-story building at the corner of Highway 70 and Harpeth Valley, and a one-story building at the rear of the property. The proposed SP would allow uses permitted within the CL zoning district with certain exclusions. This is our view of the property, and the Planning Commission recommends disapproval of the cancellation of the PUD and disapproval of the SP district, as the proposed uses are not consistent with the office transition policies, and they are also not consistent with the Mayor's commitment to Councilmember Jernigan to not support development in the floodplain overlay district until the floodplain recovery plan is complete.
Councilman Crafton.
Request to open a public hearing.
Could I see a show of hands of those in favor of 672 and 673? Thank you. A show of hands of those in opposition. Seeing no one in opposition, does anyone in favor wish to speak? Seeing none, I declare the public hearing closed. Councilman Crafton.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Normally I would move for approval without any comments, but after that dissertation by the Planning Commission, I feel like I at least need to let people know what's going on. Now, I'm going to explain it really quick. This has been a parcel that has, been a concern of the neighbors for quite some time, actually back since I was in the council my first term, 1995 through 99. And basically, you've got a parcel with a residential zoning, an office transition sub-area plan, and a commercial PUD with a little floodplain and natural conservation thrown in for good measure. So needless to say, the property has remained dormant and undeveloped for quite some time. It's never going to be used as a landscape nursery anymore. It was for some amount of years, but with Home Depot down the street, they just can't compete, and so that use has been non-existent for at least a couple of years, I think. So anyway, to try to ascertain what the community wanted, originally the owner approached me and wanted to do a PUD removal and a straight CL zoning. Well, we met with the community, and rightly so. They had some concerns about just a straight zoning because, you really can't control any kind of architectural palettes or lighting or signage or anything of that nature or strict usages. So at that initial meeting where we had probably 75 or so people at the Bellevue YMCA, we put it out for anybody that wanted to participate. Could be on a community advisory board for this zoning, and we had about somewhere between 10 to 12 people sign up. And since then, we've had a couple of meetings. The last meeting we actually went through the CL and CN zoning code line by line, item by item, and had the neighbors vote on whether they wanted this use, didn't want this use. So they went down through the whole thing. We talked about positioning on the property, architectural controls, downlighting, monument signs, and we have come up with the plan. There are probably a few amendments that may need to be added. Did we add all the latest amendments, John?
The planning department has prepared a substitute to SP, which I assume everything you wanted is in the plan. I have not seen the plan, but
Yep, so I want to move the substitute. And if there's anything else that comes up, we can get our group to come back and meet again. I know it's unusual to amend on third reading, but this is such a difficult piece of property. We'll make sure we get it exactly right. But we've had a lot of community participation. It's not perfect, but I think it allows for something to be built there that would help the community. Right across the street, you've got the Shoney's and Regal Cinema, a gas station. You're right by an interstate off-ramp. So I think this is a way that instead of a dilapidated building that's not in use, something nice could be put in there. And so I would just ask for everybody to vote in favor of this tonight. Thank you.
She came down, she's going to help get him there.
yeah. Does he want to move the substitute now and go ahead and get a motion on that?
Are you moving the substitute now?
Yeah, I would. I told people that we'd be moving the substitute because it had all the changes. If we don't, then there's a two-story building instead of the one-story building, so we want to go ahead and make sure the substitute's moved.
So you're moving the substitute?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second? Second. Any discussion on the substitute? Are you on the substitute, Councilman? Okay. All in favor of the substitute, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Councilman Jernigan?
Thank you. Well, I guess it's been 2 months since the flooding, and now we're wanting to start tinkering with the flood overlay, and I don't know. The reason I deferred the bill to begin with was so we could get some regulations in place, find out from the experts, what is appropriate, what is not, and now I'm concerned that we're starting to fool around with the floodplains again. That bothers me. So I would ask that there be a deferral, if you would consider it just for a little time. Apparently this has been going on for years. It's not going to go anywhere. And hopefully we can have some clear guidelines on flood overlay regulations and what's right and what's wrong, and would know what can be built there and what's not. So I don't want to see a situation where the government's going to have to come in and buy somebody out again. So I would ask for a deferral. If not, I would ask to disapprove this. Thank you.
Councilman Crafton?
Call your name. Yeah, I just wanted to make one point clear, and I understand what the previous speaker is saying, but the only problem is that nobody in my district, the 22nd district, that had the heaviest flooding casualties throughout the whole county. I believe Councilman Mitchell in our district had almost 40% of the flood casualties. Nobody in my district is in the 100-year floodplain. They're not getting a buyout. In fact, homes, several hundred feet behind this that were flooded out are having to rebuild. I've got an 86-year-old and 90-year-old couple that go to my church that got flooded out that are having to rebuild. This is in front of that on a state highway. So I don't know if there's any reason to wait because of this reason, because everybody in that subdivision that got flooded out is having to rebuild. They're not getting any help other than the FEMA grant. So I understand the argument in theory, but in the real world, it's just not working that way. So I would ask to go ahead and approve this tonight, and I'll defer the rest of my time to Councilman Mitchell.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo the same sentiments that Councilman Crafton just said. Councilman Jernigan, this is zone residential right now. So in fact, we're doing, this rezoning is helping so we don't build more houses where the water rises in the night and puts people in peril. And I want to echo the same thing Councilman Crafton said. In the 37221 zip code, we have 2,497 FEMA recipient households. We've got 4 houses in the buyout, ladies and gentlemen. So by what he's doing and putting it in commercial, I think we're doing something. And like he said, the people who live behind this, they're having to rebuild their houses by any means necessary that they come up with. They got a FEMA grant and that's it. And now they're on their own. So I agree with the councilman. This is one of the first things you see when you get off the interstate there in Bellevue. We need to do something with this eyesore, but definitely we're moving it away from being able to build residential homes to something else there. So people who build on that property in the future, if their houses get flooded, we don't put them in the same situation that the people who live down the street on their own. So I agree with the councilman. I ask you to support this zoning change.
Councilman Gatto.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. I have a question for Mr. Cooper when he gets back to the bridge there. Mr. Cooper, the property today is it's zoned. Could someone go pull a building permit today and build on that property if it was in accordance with the current zoning?
Legally, yes.
So legally, we would have to let someone build. Well, when this came before us at the Planning Commission about a couple of weeks ago, whenever it was, and I appreciate what Councilman Jernigan is trying to do, because he had one of the hardest hit areas. He didn't have as many houses maybe as they did in Bellevue, but he had a very hard hit area that has basically been ignored for a long time, and it's finally getting some attention now. And I can understand where he's coming from, but the practicality of the matter is I don't think that deferring this or not approving this puts us in any better position to prohibit development on this property, because I think it could be developed today. And in fact, I agree with what Councilman Mitchell said. Commercial development would be a much better idea for this than residential. And at the Planning Commission, when this came before us, there was no mention of Councilman Jernigan's, anything from the mayor's office and the promise to Councilman Jernigan. And I think that was highly inappropriate for the planning staff to present that as part of their presentation. So I'm very disappointed at that. It's certainly appropriate for Councilman Jernigan to stand up and relay that information, but I hope in the future that we stay more on track with our reports from the Planning Commission staff. Thank you.
Councilman Claiborne, did you wish to speak? Councilman Cole.
Thank you, Ms. Vice Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor. Ms. Bernards, if the amendment as presented or the substitute as presented, apparently it was not before the commission when the commission met?
The commission considered the SP.
Okay.
There was some modifications from the first one they saw, but those were reported. Those are now included in this plan.
So with the substitute that's before us, I mean, does that do anything to the staff recommendation or to your perception of what the commission recommendation would be?
No, it still doesn't meet the policy, the office transition policy, the uses that would be permitted in this SP.
Okay. I just encourage council members, however you vote on this, let's not get into whose district was worse affected than others. This has been a tough couple of months. All of us had an impact in one way or another, and we're not going to get into any good situation by competing with each other on who had damage and who didn't. Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor of the bill as substitute? We've already voted on. We voted on the substitute. This is on the bill as substituted. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Next is BL 2010-674, amends 107.87 acres of the existing Green Hills Urban Design Overlay District classified SCR along Hillsborough Pike, Hillsborough Drive, Hillsborough Circle, Hobbs Road, Warfield Drive, Richard Jones Road, Brandywood Drive, and Abbott Martin Road. Councilman McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I would move to defer to the September public hearing with a brief explanation.
We have a motion and a second. Councilman.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. This amendment to the UDO is specifically in regards to the signage requirements of the UDO, which my predecessor, Councilman Shulman, made mandatory back in his second term. I think the spirit of that is very good, but in practice, it's caused some legal challenges, some logistical challenges, and it's brought some concerns up in the minds of the property owners and business owners in the Green Hills Commercial District. So I'm wanting to defer this to further confer with them and see if we can come to some kind of compromise. So again, I would renew my motion, Vice Mayor.
We have a motion and a second to defer to the September 7th meeting. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Next is BL 2010-694, amends the Metro Code to provide a refund of the zoning application fee if the applicant's proposal is not enacted by the Metropolitan Council. Councilman Crafton.
Move to defer indefinitely.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor of indefinite deferral, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Next is BL 2010-698, changes .18 acres from RS 7.5 to SP zoning for property located at 4414 West Lawn Drive to permit single-family residential, medical, and general office uses within an existing single-family structure. Councilman Holloman.
Move to open the public hearing.
Could I see a show of hands of those in favor? Thank you. A show of hands of those in opposition. Anyone in favor wishing to speak, please come to the lectern now and line up, please. We ask that you state your name and your address, and we also ask that you not be repetitive and not repeat what the person in front of you has said. Yes, sir.
My name is Daniel Barton. I live at 207 Lauderdale Road. I'd like to thank Madam Vice Mayor and the council for allowing me to be here today, and would also like to especially thank Councilman Holloman for his work in sponsoring and supporting this bill. To summarize, I'm here today seeking an SP zoning permit and not a blanket commercial zoning permit so that I may create a transitional space between the residential and commercial areas related to this corridor of Sylvan Park. 4414 is a rundown house whose backyard has been used for commercial purposes for the better part of a decade. I want to create a space that reads aesthetically like a historic home but functions like a low-density office consisting of 2 to 3 therapists. Parking would be in the rear of the building, signage would be limited to whatever's on the mailbox. Additional traffic would be negligible as West Lawn is capable of handling this traffic as it also handles the traffic from the adjacent bustling commercial node. This home is not historically protected, nor does it lie within a historic overlay. That being said, it would be renovated as though it were, and the Historic Zoning Commission has even already given its approval to preliminary drawings for this project. I have done other acts of due diligence as well. I have stood in front of 3 different neighborhood community meetings. This is my fourth public public government hearing in relation to this project, and each meeting thus far has had the net result of moving this plan forward. I've obtained the proper plan amendment for this project and have also obtained the Planning Commission's recommendation of approval. I've obtained stormwater approval and have the foundation for the Department of Codes approval as well. But most importantly, I've obtained substantial community support and have here today over 70 letters of support, and I'd like to submit these for the record, please. More than half of these are from Sylvan Park, and all but a few are from Sylvan Park and Cherokee Parks combined, with the property at 4414 West Lawn essentially dividing the 2 neighborhoods. Among those letters of support are all of the 8 owner lived-in homes that surround this property. Also among those are letters of support from Cherokee Crossings. The fact that I am standing here in front of you today speaks to the merit of the idea that is at the foundation of this project. The idea that there are multiple ways to protect a neighborhood and facilitate its evolution, such that the character of the neighborhood is protected, that a low-density office can act as a transitional space and can coexist side by side with residential as long as it is done aesthetically and conceptually with councilmen and community input, which this project has. I am passionate about this project, and I am here today asking for you to allow this idea that has been born by me but nurtured by way of the neighborhood input and support to be allowed to proceed so that the property, the area's historic character, and the fabric of the community may be protected in the way that it deserves. Thank you.
Next.
Good evening. My name is Jamie Heller, and I am here representing the Cherokee Crossings Homeowners Association. I live adjacent to the property that we are discussing, and I've been designated by our president to speak on our community's behalf. The Cherokee Crossings Homeowners Association would like you to know that we unanimously support Dr. Barton's opportunity here. We find that his proposal will not change the character of our neighborhood. We believe that he will beautify our neighborhood by investing in an otherwise run-down rental property. We appreciate and believe that he will make a long-term investment to work in this building and stay there and actually take an opportunity to invest in a place that would otherwise likely turn into a rental property in the same state where it is at this moment. We recognize, and we would like you to recognize, that this variance will not over-commercialize our neighborhood given the property's location. We'd like to point out that it's located directly across from a large rental apartment complex on a busy corner. This property is already adjacent to a commercial property that's been fabulous for the last 10 years for our community. This is a transitional location, and we believe that as such, it won't actually lead to a bleed out of any further commercial zoning problems. It's on a busy intersection, it's on a busy street, I should say, with no sidewalks, so it's not likely that someone is going to buy this property and turn it into a home. Dr. Barton offers a transitional use that will be a gateway from the commercial area to the residential without actually adding anything jarring to the neighborhood. We believe that there's a motivation that he has a motivation to reinvest in this property beyond what a homeowner might do. We believe that his investment in the property will actually improve our neighborhood. The main concern that we have addressed, that we have seen surrounds setting a precedent, that this would provide a launching pad for similar zoning changes in the future. If it did, I believe that you would find strong opposition from those neighbors, us included, in close proximity to this location. We want to guard against any potential signal that we're supportive of any further zoning changes at this time other than those contemplated here, given the specific circumstances and the narrowly tailored zoning variance that is upon us today. We support these particular zoning changes. We find it to be a practical choice, and I want to thank you for your time and consideration of our plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Madeline Walls, and I live at 4406 West Lawn Drive. I've been there 9.5 years. The back of my house faces directly onto the backyard of this property, which is 3 doors down from me. And in the time that I've lived there for 9.5 years, I've watched this property deteriorate. Mrs. Fuqua was aging and her own health was deteriorating, and she was not able to keep up the house. And so there were actually boards falling off and cars parked, a derelict car in the back, rusting in the backyard. For some time, there was parking being done by one of the restaurants, and now it's been used by the landscaping place that's next door to store bags of mulch, extra trees, all kinds of plants. In the past, the property next door to it has been a magnet for feral cats. I've been worried about this property. It reflects on the value of all our property. We live in a neighborhood that's very caring. We care for our neighbors, we care for our homes, and we care for the upkeep. It's sort of mixed housing. My house is only 11 years old, and the house next door to me is built in the 30s. I see this chance to renovate this property, to improve it, as the one chance to improve the integrity of the neighborhood as a whole. As of now, it's an eyesore, and it's destroying the integrity of our neighborhood. And so I support wholeheartedly this particular renovation. I think it's a very good use for the property. I don't foresee some single family, finding this property desirable. There's not a shoulder There's not just a sidewalk, there's no shoulder, and it's in a very busy S-curve street coming up a hill, so the traffic is bad, and it faces this rental apartment. So it's not as if it's destroying a residential neighborhood. It's just becoming a much enhanced buffer from the commercial zone down on Murphy Road. So I support it, and I hope that you will also vote to pass for this renovation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. David Ewing, 2126 Blair Boulevard. I'm here to speak in favor of Dr. Barton's property. This property is kind of behind the Cafe Nona parking lot and kind of across from the entrance to McCabe's Park. It is a great transitional piece, and I must say this about Dr. Barton. He has tirelessly reached out, dealt with the council person in this district, dealt with people in the district, and he hadn't hired a bunch of people to do this. He has just done it on his own, and he has just been very amenable to the people that live in the neighborhood, the needs of the neighborhood. And I think one of the needs of the neighborhood are doctor services in a very small building with parking in the rear, and considering this is next to an existing parking lot and a lot of other businesses and one of the largest rental properties in Sylvan Park, I think this is a wonderful addition to the neighborhood, and I hope you'll approve it.
Thank you.
Good evening. Danny Rosen, 131 Gilman Avenue, and I wanted to come and speak in favor of the project as well, but particularly to try to recognize the momentum of what this opportunity is. This project has the planning staff approval. It's consistent with the community plan. It's a very limited SP that restricts the size, scale, and use. It's not some blanket commercial zoning approval. It has thoughtful design. It has the support of the neighbors. It's sensitive to lots of different issues and departments within Metro, from historic to stormwater. While the opposition will say that this is a slippery slope in terms of precedent for that neighborhood, leaving the area open for development, I think really what tonight is just sort of finishing what we've started, and what some of the other folks have said has been a process that has just been worked very diligently. This project has good planning. It has appropriate limitations for Daniel's project. It has good precedent for neighboring corners of the parcels nearby and the landscaping business. And it seems to me that it would be extremely rare to accept a plan amendment, but then to reject the zoning change that accompanies that. And so I was hoping that tonight we'd have the opportunity to not leave this open-ended and have started the process, gotten this far, and then sort of leave it dangling. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
I'm BJ Glandon. I live at 4408 West Lawn Drive with my wife and my daughter and a lively dog. As the owner or occupier of a home within eyeshot and earshot of the property in question, I wish to voice my support for the proposed zoning change. Over the last 3 years, I've worked hard to improve our property to the benefit of my family, but also hopefully to the benefit of my neighbors. At the same time, the property at 4414 has fallen further and further into ruin. At the moment, you'll typically find 4 cars parked in the front lawn, acting as kind of a partial screen to lawn chairs and other items. I'm not here to complain about my neighbor. I just want to illustrate the kind of improvement that I expect to see out of Dr. Barton's plan. And since I've moved in, I've had little hope that there would be improvement in the situation because of the peculiarities of this property. So you can imagine my excitement when Dr. Barton contacted me to explain his plan. And I have to say I was surprised to find out how strongly some opposed this project, even though they live much further away from the property than I do. Nevertheless, I've come to understand their point of view, and I found out that what we all want is roughly the same thing for Sylvan Park, and that is a quiet, safe, and stable residential community with limited and isolated commercial activity, primarily to serve the neighborhood. But I believe that Dr. Barton's proposal is a step towards this goal, not away from the goal. And because of the property's condition and the ambiguous situation of the adjacent property, I think its future is quite uncertain. But Dr. Barton's plans will reduce this uncertainty and provide an immediate solution to the current problem of a structure that continues to depreciate. As I understand it, the point of these meetings is to consider special cases in which it makes good sense to change zoning laws to accommodate small improvements in our neighborhood. And I personally cannot imagine a better example of such an occasion than this one. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in support wish to speak? Anyone in opposition wishing to speak, please come to the lectern.
Good evening. I am Wendell Goodman. I live in Sylvan Park at 4901 Park Avenue. I am the president of Historic Sylvan Park Incorporated Neighborhood Association, as well as a member of the other neighborhood association in Sylvan Park, SPNA. Both of these neighborhood associations are on record as being opposed to this proposed zoning change. We are opposed to this rezoning because we believe it sets a bad precedent for future requests to expand the commercial district, not only at 46th and Murphy Road, but in other parts of the surrounding residential properties. The Sylvan Park neighborhood has worked for years to keep the commercial zoning from expanding into the residential area, and this zone change would destroy our efforts. One of the justifications by the Planning Commission for amending the community plan is that the 4414 West Lawn property would provide a buffer between the existing commercial landscape business and the residential properties. However, the existing landscape business is a non-conforming commercial use on a residentially zoned parcel, and now they're planning to relocate, and the future use of this property is certainly uncertain. So it isn't going to be necessarily what the Planning Commission thought was going to be there, that we were going to buffer or transition with the property. We have requested Councilman Holloman to defer this hearing. There are several unresolved other issues which you will hear more about from John Summers to follow me, and in addition to the questionable future of the adjacent property. Therefore, since we did not get a deferral, we urge you to vote against this zoning change. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm John Summers, and I reside at 5000 Wyoming Avenue. It's rare that I'm in disagreement with Councilman Holloman's actions as a council member, but in this case, I would respectfully hope that he would still defer this bill after tonight so we can resolve the issue of the property next door. What you have is a philosophical debate here and a pragmatic issue. You know, clearly the property has been run down, and a lot of the adjacent property owners would like to see it improved by Mr. Barton, Dr. Barton, and I think that he has intentions of doing that. The problem is that we've had a precedent of not expanding the commercial property here, and this is an expansion. And the justification for the community plan being amended, which quite frankly, you know, the community plan was just adopted a year ago, and there was no support at the community planning process for expanding the commercial area, but the Planning Commission chose to amend the plan for this one lot zoning so that this would be in accordance with the plan. You know, our concern is we now have a non-conforming residential property next to this property, and then the residential on the other side. And our concern is that if we're going to deal with this issue, if this is going to be rezoned, then we need to deal with a non-conforming property, which, as I understand, Councilman Holloman may correct me, but it's my understanding that the current landscaping property and this rental property is owned by the same property owners. So now's the time to try to resolve it, because we have a non-conforming use which is leaving, which they say they're going to keep permitted, but we don't know ultimately what can happen. As you know, as council members, they can go to the Board of Zoning Appeals and ask for an expansion, and landscaping business is a pretty intense commercial interest, so we don't know what we'll wind up getting. So it was our recommendations, and quite frankly, it was a meeting with Councilman Holloman with all the presidents of the neighborhood associations, including Cherokee Crossings Homeowners Association, that we try to resolve this issue all at one time. So while we would prefer that this not be rezoned because it does set a precedent, if we are going to see this property rezoned and move the transition point, we would hope that the adjacent property to this would be dealt with at the same point in time, because it's kind of the unanswered question as to what happens with that residentially zoned non-conforming property that has a landscaping business on it. So we would, again, renew our request to Councilman Holloman that he would defer this so we can kind of resolve these issues at the same time. Thank you very much.
Seeing no one else wishing to speak, I declare the public hearing closed. Councilman Holloman.
Move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Next is BL 2010-699, amends 219.8 acres of the Riverwood Urban Design Overlay District, classified RM9 and MUN, located at the southwest corner of Hoggett Ford Road and Dodson Chapel Road, to require a new traffic impact study. Councilman Gatto.
I think we need to see the slides first, please, ma'am.
Yes, sir. We do.
This is Council Bill 2010-699, and this is a request to amend the Villages of Riverwood UDO to require an updated traffic impact study with the submittal of each final site plan and to require compliance with any identified new improvements. Planning Commission has recommended disapproval of this request. Under the current requirements, a traffic impact study was required by Metro Public Works with the preliminary UDO. Based on the study, Public Works required a number of infrastructure improvements to be completed prior to final site plan approvals. In addition, there is an ongoing requirement to perform a traffic signal warrant analysis with the completion of every 250 units. The proposed amendment would require a revised traffic impact study with each final site plan application, and any required additional infrastructure improvements would need to be completed by the developer. Improvements associated with the development were required and completed on Dodson Chapel, Central Pike, Hoggett Ford Road, and as well as for new roads to serve the development. There is an ongoing signal requirement, warrant analysis requirement in 3 locations, and for every 250 dwelling units, a study must be done. The developer must install any required signals based on that study. Metro Public Works recommended disapproval of this amendment. The developer has already completed infrastructure improvements from the preliminary UDO, and changing the traffic impact study requirements now would conflict with the original agreement. Also, there's a provision in the traffic study guidelines that allow Public Works to require a new traffic impact study after 5 years has passed. The Planning Commission supports the Public Works recommendation and also recommends disapproval of this request.
Councilman Gatto.
Open the public hearing, please.
Could I see a show of hands of those in support? A show of hands of those in opposition? Do you wish to speak? Okay.
Vice Mayor, neighbors, members of the council, my name is Tom White. I live at 36 Old Club Court. I represent the Villages of Riverwood. I strongly oppose this bill on behalf of my client. As was mentioned by the staff, this was a development that was approved in 2004. It was 7 years ago. It's a very large UDO. It has 2,000 dwelling units, 65,000 square feet of mixed use, and has a future assisted living site. For UDOs, PUDs, and SP, road improvements are established and required with preliminary approval, not at final. And as the staff has said, the owner then moves forward with a final site plan, knowing exactly what the existing requirements are. My client has literally spent millions of dollars in this development over the last 7 years in reliance on the approval by the Planning Commission in 2004. The staff recommended disapproval. This was a unanimous disapproval by the Planning Commission. They thought that it was totally inequitable. I urge you to reflect on that. And remember that recently developments have been reviewed for changes in them. As a result of that, 4 of the significant metro departments, the Public Works Department, the Department of Codes, the Department of Water Services, and the Fire Department, basically have signed a memorandum which was given to the Planning Commission. It's very clear in its comments that banks and developers are pulling back because they don't know whether Metro government is going to change the rules and regulations for subdivisions or other real estate in midstream. Once people and their banks have an investment in a property development, they expect the government to basically honor their agreements. That's what this case is about. Please don't change the rules midstream. This is a very poor proposal, and if there's ever a matter of a vested right in somebody coming after the fact, this is the best classic example I can give you. We urge you to disapprove this matter. Thank you for your courtesies.
Thank you. Seeing no one else wishing to speak, I declare the public hearing closed. Councilman Gatto.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. In the absence of the sponsor of this bill, I would move to defer one meeting.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor of a one-meeting deferral, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Deferral motion passes. Next is BL 2010-700, makes provisions of a neighborhood landmark district to 0.76 acres of property zoned RS-15 located at 358 Bellevue Road. Councilman Crafton.
Request to open the public hearing.
Could I see a show of hands of those in favor? Thank you. Please raise your hand if you're in opposition. Seeing no one in opposition, do you wish to speak in favor? I'm sorry, I can't see you. Okay, thank you. I declare the public hearing closed. Councilman Crafton.
Move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Next is BL 2010-701, changes 8.96 acres from R15 to SP zoning for properties located at 1282 and 1300 Rural Hill Road to permit an 89-unit multifamily residential development. Councilman Domine.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Open public hearing.
Could I see a show of hands of those in favor? Thank you. A show of hands of those in opposition. Does anyone in favor wish to speak? Please come forward.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. Members of the council, my name is Michael Garrigan. I'm an engineer with Dell & Associates. We represent both the owner and the potential developer of this property. We started working on this probably about 9 months ago. The Rural Hill Moss Road detailed design neighborhood plan had recently passed. We met with the planning staff early and often, multiple times, met with Councilman Duvall. Feel like we've got a great plan. It meets the needs of our owners and the current, or our clients and the current landowners, that it makes a feasible development, and at the same time, we really feel it keeps to the rural character of the area. We had a community meeting with Councilman Duvall and Councilman Domine at Freeland Chevrolet probably about a month ago. And, we feel like everybody that was there left very happy. So with that, we ask for your approval tonight, and thanks for your service.
Thank you. Do you wish to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I declare the public hearing closed. Councilman Domine.
On behalf of Councilman Duvall and the community, I move approval.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Next is BL 2010-702, makes provisions of a neighborhood landmark district to 1.26 acres of property zoned RS5 located at 108 and 112 Lena Bell Avenue. Councilman Forcom.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Call for public hearing.
Could I have a show of hands of those in support? Thank you. Anyone in opposition, please raise your hand. Seeing no one in opposition, does anyone in support wish to speak? Seeing none, I declare the public hearing closed. Councilman Forcom.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. As you can see, world of support for this bill. We've had through the Planning Commission and here, and certainly I want to thank the Planning Department for coming up with this way of preserving, bringing the Madison Bluegrass venue back to Madison where it belongs. So with that, I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Next, without objection, we're going to take BL 2010-703 and 704 together. 703, cancel 6.6 acres of the Rosedown Residential Plan Unit Development District zoned RS10 and proposed for AR2A for property located at 6515 Holt Road. 704, changes 6.6 acres from RS10 to AR2A zoning for property located within the Rosedown Residential Plan Unit Development Overlay at 6515 Holt Road. Councilman Toller.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. Open the public hearing, please.
Please raise your hand if you are in support. Raise your hand if you're in opposition. Seeing none on either side, I declare the public hearing closed. Councilman Toller.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. Move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes.
Open it all.
Next is BL 10705, cancels .64 acres of the Dinwiddie Square Residential Plan Unit Development District Overlay, zoned RS 7.5 for properties located at 2401 Fairfax Avenue and Fairfax Avenue unnumbered at the southwest corner of Fairfax Avenue and 24th Avenue South. Councilman Stein.
Request public hearing.
Please raise your hand if you're in support. Thank you. Please raise your hand if you're in opposition. Seeing no one in opposition, do you wish to speak in support? I declare the public hearing closed. Councilman Stein.
On behalf of the absent Councilwoman Lalone, I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Next is BL 2010-706, changes 8.32 acres from R10 to SP zoning for properties located at 4243 and 4301 Hermitage Road to permit an assisted living, independent living, and/or multifamily use. Councilman Jernigan.
Want to open the public hearing?
Please raise your hand if you're in support. Thank you. Please raise your hand if you're in opposition. Anyone in support wish to speak? Anyone in opposition wish to speak?
Madam Vice Chairman and members of council, thank you for this opportunity to comment on this rezoning proposal. My name is Howard Cattell, and I'm the CEO at the Hermitage, Andrew Jackson's home. We are an abutter to the property, and while we're not in overt opposition to the project, we do have some concerns that we have raised with the owner and at the Planning Commission meeting back on the 13th of May. And two issues that we would like to see addressed with the project before it's approved. The first is view shed of the property or the proposed buildings that could be constructed on the rezoned property. As the land abuts the Hermitage, the home of President Andrew Jackson, we are concerned about not only the views or the intrusion of new buildings into the view from the Hermitage Mansion, but also from the Hermitage Farm itself. That's one of the largest preserved historic open spaces in the country. The Hermitage is the second oldest presidential museum in the country. We get between 170 and 200,000 visitors a year. And we want to ensure that people coming there are coming to a rural landscape. So while we're not opposed to the project overtly, we would like to see provisions built in to make sure that new buildings are buffered and screened from our property. The second concern that we have is with potential traffic increases that might result from the project on Hermitage Lane and on Rachel's Lane, both of which are entrances onto our property. We have concern that traffic might start cutting through from Old Hickory Boulevard over to the new project along Hermitage Lane that would cause traffic problems for traffic coming onto our property there at Rachel's Lane and Hermitage Lane. So those are two issues we would like to see addressed or considered, studied. We've raised this with the Planning Commission. and been in contact with them as well prior to a final approval of this project. Thank you.
Thank you. I declare the public hearing closed. Councilman Jernigan.
I move to approve with one brief comment.
Have a motion and a second. Councilman.
I share the concerns with the Hermitage, but I think we've worked a lot through this. There's going to be a traffic study that's going to be conducted, and they're about opening up Hills Lane to widening it for that purpose. No one wants to see the historical preservation of the Hermitage more than I. It was Councilman Gatto and I actually put an historic overlay over the Hermitage because we cared about the development that was going on, the potential development that could go on there. So, there was traffic there before that was run-down apartments, and this is a tremendous improvement. There are going to be buffers, and I will pledge to the Hermitage that I will be committed to seeing this process all the way through, that the historical integrity of that property remain. Please pass this. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Next is BL 2010-707, changes 3.99 acres from R10 to SP zoning for properties located at Salone Drive unnumbered and at Rosebank Avenue unnumbered to permit 15 single-family dwelling units. Councilman Cole.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. Request that we open the public hearing.
Please raise your hand if you're in support. Thank you. Please raise your hand if you're in opposition. Seeing no one in opposition, does anyone in support wish to speak? I declare the public hearing closed. Councilmember Cole.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. Let me move approval with a very brief explanation.
Have a motion and a second. Councilman.
This is one of those, let's call it a bad story that we hope will have a very, very good ending. This SP is 15 lots on 4 acres, which of course fits the current land use and current zoning. We are hopeful that by the time this is built, this SP will be the first sustainable single-family subdivision in metropolitan Davidson County. There have been 4 single-family homes that have been approved using Metro's green permit process, but this 15 will quadruple that amount. A couple of things just to very quickly point out. These will be 15 LEED certified or Earthcraft homes, all permitted by Metro Green building permits. We'll have 12 total rain gardens on this property. Each house will have a 50-gallon rain barrel, and there will be an underground detention system that will allow for 210 gallons of rainwater to be stored and used by the residents. When this first came to me 3 or 4 years ago, it came to me as a problem where we had to issue a stop work permit on the previous owner because they just went in and plowed down a bunch of trees in somebody's backyard. And I'm very pleased that the new owners are East Nashville folks, and they've been working with us and work with the community to deliver this, and I hope you'll support us on it. Thank you.
All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Next is BL 2010-708, changes 3.09 acres from RM9 and RM20 to R8 zoning for properties located at 2113 Cliff Drive and Cliff Drive unnumbered, 625 feet north of Clarksville Pike. Councilman Harrison.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Move a public hearing, please.
Please raise your hand if you're in support. Please raise your hand if you're in opposition. Seeing none on either side, I declare the public hearing closed. Councilmember Harrison.
Committee reports. Are we at that?
All done.
All right. Okay. Move for approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We're now at items on the consent agenda. Councilman Gatto.
Could I rise for a point of personal privilege, please?
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Bernhardt took me to the woodshed a while ago, and I have to correct a statement that I made. The statement about the mayor's commitment to Councilman Jernigan was in the staff report, and I missed it, and I apologize to the planning staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilmember Page. It's on the resolution's on the consent agenda. We just need the committee report.
Rules and confirmation approved, all 4 in favor, 0 against. I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Next is RS 2010-1269, approves the election of certain notaries public for Davidson County. Councilmember Page.
Rules and Confirmation Committee approved, 4 in favor, 0 against. I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We're now at bills on introduction and first reading. Councilman Craddock.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. I would respectfully request that we consider 210-716 and 210-17 separate.
They're automatically deferred to the September?
No,
to
just the next.
Okay.
Second meeting in July.
They'll be automatically deferred to the second meeting in July. Now, is there a motion for all other bills on second? All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Is there a motion to adjourn? All in favor, say aye.